Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you. What really happens when you roll out that blue bin to the curb, you know, the recycling bin? Americans generate more than 4 pounds of trash a day, but most of that, can it be recycled? Or is it being recycled? In Georgia, just 13% of recyclables actually get recycled. One Dunwoody man asked 11Alive, is my recycling really making a difference? Caitlin Ross joins us now with a behind the scenes look at this. And Caitlin, this turned into quite a journey, huh?
It did. It's actually a super interesting question. We got it kind of sporadically, like what actually happens to our recycling? Does it actually get recycled? And people had a really low level of confidence, thinking that they were putting in all of this effort to recycle their stuff from their house, but then on the back end, where did it end up? So Pete wrote into us to ask exactly that. He wrote into the 11Alive inbox and says, what's going on? And if it is being recycled, prove it. Take a listen.
I'd like to hear what happens. I'd like to know. I'd like to be convinced. I'd like for somebody to admit one way or the other whether it's happening or not.
And I like Pete there. He says he'd like to be convinced. And so we kind of went on this behind the scenes journey to find out exactly what happens with the recycling in DeKalb County.
So tell us, what's the process like?
So everybody knows you roll your little blue bin to the end of the driveway every, Thursday if it's collected at your house on Thursdays. And then there are specific recycling trucks that pick up that recycling. They bring it to a sorting center in DeKalb County, and then they ship it off on a truck. It goes 22 miles out to Conyers. DeKalb County actually contracts with Pratt Recycling. They're responsible for sorting it. So Pete's big question was, you dump all of this together in the blue bin, but how does it actually get sorted? So Pratt Recycling is the agency that does all of that sorting, and then they have to provide metrics back to the county to show how much is recycled and then how much is thrown away. If they throw it away, they can't recycle it, then DeKalb County should be getting money back for that refuse that does not make it into the recycling stream.
Was he just curious as to whether it was going, or was it a concern of his as to why he brought this to you?
So Pete is a super recycler, I would call him. When we went to his garage, it was actually full of recycling. He goes and tells his neighbors every week, go ahead and drop off your styrofoam, your plastic, your coffee containers, anything that you want to make sure gets recycled, drop it off in my garage. And then he spends an enormous amount of time sorting it to make sure that it actually gets where it needs to go. And the items that he thinks are really difficult to recycle, like styrofoam, for example, he brings that to Charm, which is a place in DeKalb County that deals exclusively with really difficult to recycle materials. So Pete really wants to make sure that the recycling ends up in the recycling stream, so it's personal for him. He said at one point during our interview, the whole world is going to be junk if we don't do something about it.
Wow.
And so he's really committed to doing something about it.
I like him. I like him. I teach environmental science, and I try to teach my kids this as well. But a lot of us don't follow this process like Pete does, right?
Right.
I mean, so what's the process for us?
So it's changed a lot. So before COVID, there was a really good tradition of people recycling. And then during COVID in DeKalb County in particular, they just got hit with these really huge shortages of employees during the pandemic. So they decided to commingle the garbage and recycling. And that's when a lot of people lost confidence. So people were looking out their window and they were seeing the trash truck and the recycling truck just dump everything together. And then the recycling was not getting sorted. So the numbers just plummeted. We went through and saw an audit that DeKalb County did. I really have to applaud the commissioners because they heard from residents that this was happening. They did an audit and the audit found that to be true. So the audit recommended a couple of different things, but one of the main ones was having a different garbage truck and recycling truck. So it's no longer the same truck that comes around. There are 6 trucks that are dedicated specifically to recycling, and that's really so residents have a larger degree of confidence that this is ending up where it needs to be.
Okay, all right. Will there be another audit quickly?
Yes, there is going to be another audit in May or June after they can really reassess those numbers to make sure that things are going where they need to go.
Okay, sounds good. Caitlin Ross, always on top of it. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Chesley.
We pay for this service. I want it done. I want it done. Thanks so much. We're hearing from an Atlanta family who experienced some scary moments on board of a Delta airline flight that caught fire. The fire forced an evacuation on the tarmac in Orlando yesterday. The plane was set to take off to Atlanta when the fire started. Passengers were sharing videos of the piece of the wing on fire. You can see it right there. Two brothers, Carter and Graham Schwab, and their parents were returning from a trip to Universal Resort in Orlando. Carter and Graham say they noticed part of the plane was on fire as it was preparing to taxi, and before they knew it, an evacuation order came in. We spoke with Carter and Graham. When they finally arrived in Atlanta, they tell us the escape was anything but smooth.
They open all sides of the window or the emergency exit doors, and they inflate the slides, and we all start sliding down. And we were close to the back, so we try to go out the back one, and the slide didn't actually inflate off of the back one, so we all had to rush back up front and get off the middle of the slide.
Certainly some scary moments there. Everyone made it off the plane safely, including obviously the Schwab family there. Now begins the task of trying to figure out what exactly went wrong. Here now on the take is Professor Karen Fye. She is with Georgia Tech School of Aerospace Engineering, and well, let's get into it, right? This was a Airbus, what we know about is an Airbus A330 aircraft, which was involved. What do we know about that plane?
That plane is a very strong workhorse. It's been around for about 30 years. First one came off the factory in 1994. This particular plane came off in 2004. So it's been with Delta for quite a long time. It hasn't really been involved in many accidents. The whole fleet of Airbus A330s has been involved in a total of 4 major accidents throughout the years, none of which have involved engines.
Wow.
So it's a pretty stable, pretty common workhorse. Delta mostly uses it to fly international passengers. It's a big plane, so it's got 2 aisles. We call it a wide body plane. And so it had about 280, 290 people on board when this incident happened.
So what we're learning is that I guess there was like a tailpipe of one of the aircrafts, and the 2 engines was the thing that caught on fire. Any indications of what or how this happened?
Yeah, so this is a pretty standard tailpipe fire on the engine. It's not dissimilar to if you have a propane or a gas grill. Have you ever had the igniter fail to start and you had the gas on for just a little too long? That's what happened here. So we had a little too much fuel build up inside the engine when it went to start. The igniter started and there was too much fuel, and you saw the flame that came out.
I gotcha.
The engines are designed to take care of this. Failed engine starts are pretty common, but a tailpipe fire is not common. It is not something we want to see on the ground.
Absolutely.
And so it's either that there was a lazy igniter or some sort of wear and tear that stopped the igniter. And what we're going to be really trying to figure out is, normally there's electronics that when there's a failed start or the start happens too late and they know there's going to be too much fuel, that it stops the whole thing and it lets time for the air to move the excess fuel out, because it's very misty. Fuel out, and then you start again, right? So you don't get this buildup in there. And so that's what the FAA is really going to be trying to figure out, and what Delta is going to be trying to help them with as they look into this incident.
So that's not an automatic maneuver there. Is that a manual maneuver that the pilots have to do that to kind of?
No, that should be an automatic thing.
Okay.
So when you have a failed start, when the pilot calls for the engine start, if the engine's own sensors, engines are very sophisticated pieces of equipment, when its own sensors indicate that it did not start or the ignition did not happen timely enough, then it scrams and it stops everything, and it gives it some time to pull back, and then it allows the pilot to try and get and start again.
Professor Fye, talk to us about what kind of maintenance these aircrafts go through.
So this is a commercial aircraft, and it goes through a very extensive and well-documented set of inspections and teardowns and overhauls every so many 100 or 1,000 hours. And the specifics really depend on the specific aircraft and the specific engine, because the manufacturers will tell all of their airlines and operators exactly how often they have to do inspections and exactly how often they have to replace parts. The FAA also has what they call TIRAM, which is an ongoing operational safety process. And they will be looking at this. They will be taking all of the data that they get back from this and feeding it back in. And if they need to make adjustments to how frequently we do inspections, what parts we inspect, how the inspections happen, and what they're looking for, then they will do that. They will feed that back into the system.
Fortunately, this was while they were on the ground. If they were in the air, what could have been the scenario? Would they have had to turn back around, or could they have made it to Atlanta? Obviously, this is Orlando to Atlanta. What would have been the process then?
So I will say it is always better to have engine issues on the ground. It is always better to have them on the ground because you're stationary. You can immediately evacuate passengers. In this case, this looked really dangerous and it looked very scary. But had they been in the air, and first of all, this could never have happened in the air because it can only happen on this start, when you have that excess gas. But had they been in the air, it is a dangerous time because when you are taking off, your engines are at their maximum thrust and you tend to be at your heaviest weight, right? Because you are loaded with fuel to go somewhere. In this case, the engine, they probably were not loaded with that much fuel because they were just hopping to Atlanta before they would have flown on to Europe somewhere. But when you do take off, this is the most dangerous time to have an engine problem because now you're at your maximum thrust. And if you pull back one engine, now you only have one engine, which makes the airplane wants to turn. That's why we size the rudder in the back as large as we do so that the captain can still control the aircraft and still safely. So what they would have done is they would have turned back the engine, pulled it back. They would have extinguished the fire using the things on board, and then they would have leveled off, declared an emergency, and circled back around. If they were light enough and if they didn't have too much fuel, they would have landed immediately. If they had too much fuel, they would have gone out over the ocean, dumped some fuel, come back and landed.
Gotcha. All right, Professor Fye, Georgia Tech, thanks so much for joining us. We could have talked to you all day long, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thanks for your insight, really appreciate it. Tort reform. The package essentially limits damages that plaintiffs can seek in lawsuits, as well as limit the exposure of property owners in such lawsuits. The bill passed the Georgia House by a narrow margin. Governor Kemp says the measure will help the state's business climate. However, opponents expressed concern that the reform may disproportionately favor corporations and insurers over victims.
The calls for change came from every sector of Georgia's economy. The status quo was simply unacceptable.
I'm grateful they got the protection, but I don't understand why someone else who's sexually assaulted shouldn't have the same rights to the justice system.
All right, here now is Chris Arnone, partner and vice chair of Moore Colson. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You heard both sides right there. Give us your initial take on the measure.
Yes, I think this is a good first step for the state of Georgia. The governor really had three goals with this reform. First, he wanted to level the playing field for businesses to be able to defend themselves in a lawsuit, but still being able to protect people that have been harmed and injured. So as you may know, Georgia is a very difficult state right now from a litigation and insurance standpoint, and this is a big issue for the state. It's estimated to have a $15 billion impact on the state. So he wanted to address that. Secondly, he wanted to reduce the number of frivolous lawsuits and also the amount of claims and verdicts, especially some of the nuclear verdicts that have come across. So I think this will help in that area, hopefully reduce that. And then ultimately, the longer term goal is to reduce insurance costs in the state. We see that right now with our clients in Georgia, where they're faced with 20, 30, even 50% increase in insurance premiums year over year. And the residents in Georgia right now, it's estimated that they pay an additional $1,500 per person in insurance annually compared to residents of other states. So the goal was to help address those three items, and I think this is a good first step in that direction.
One of the main contentions with this was from opponents is that all this could impede access to justice for individuals harmed by negligence or criminal acts. And we heard the word tort a lot mentioned during the legislative session. Now that the measure is on the books officially, what can people really expect?
Well, I think you can expect a few things. First, I think the governor's tried to be very mindful to address those parts of the law and the procedures in lawsuits that they deemed were being either unequal or were being abused. So I think over time we'll have to see how this plays out in court, but hopefully that will help. Secondly, we'll have to see how this affects insurance premiums, and that's really one of the big questions here. Florida passed some similar reform a few years back, and they're just starting to see some stabilization of insurance premiums, not a reduction, but a stabilization. So I think it's going to take some time. It's not going to be an overnight fix. We're going to have to see how this plays out in the courts and how it plays out with the insurance premiums.
Gotcha. Last question for you. Do you expect any more movement beyond this, beyond what the governor signed?
I absolutely do. The Georgia Insurance Commissioner came out yesterday after the bill was passed with some pretty strong words for the insurance companies. He said he wants to see them do their part. He wants to see them address the insurance rates in Georgia, stabilize them, reduce them. And also this reform was meant to be step one. And so there's some other parts of the law that I know the governor would like to address. And so you could see some more reform suggested in 2026. So I think next 12, 18 months, we'll see some more action on this topic.
Got it. All right. Chris Arnone, partner with and vice chair of Moore Colson. Thanks for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your insight. As the Trump administration moves to slash federal spending, one area coming under fire is childhood cancer research. The most recent figures from the National Institute of Health shows it allocated $272 million in fighting against childhood cancer. That's 4% of the NIH's overall budget for cancer research. Then President Trump signed several executive orders which look to cut funding to the agency by 15%, but a judge at least has temporarily halted that move. Here now to join us and talk more about it is Dean Crow, the founder and CEO of Rally Foundation for Childhood Cancer Research. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Talk to me how dire this is for families trying to find care for their children, and if these cuts go through, what that will do.
Well, what it'll do is it'll definitely slow down the research and the progress that we're making and getting better treatment and advancing what these families would have as options. So we definitely don't want to see these cuts happen.
Certainly. Tell us, what does the funds go toward?
So I actually, at the Rally Foundation, we really concentrate on getting funding from the Department of Defense Medical Research Program, and those go specifically to childhood cancers, to the specific cancers. So any cancers that affect children or adolescents or young adults are the cancers that we seek funding for. So that could be neuroblastoma, pediatric brain tumors, that could be different kinds of blood cancers, that can be solid tumors like osteosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma, also neuroblastoma, all those type of cancers is what we really seek to get funding for.
Mm-hmm. So if the cuts go through, does this really put pressure on groups like yours to really step up and help out?
Well, we already have pressure. So really what we do is we provide philanthropic seed investors for the next great discovery. So we go in and we provide seed funding so these researchers can start their idea and then apply for the federal funding. So that's really important what we do. And our role, of course, will become even more important if the funding is cut. Hopefully it won't be, but if it is cut, then our role definitely will be more important. But there is no way that philanthropy can carry the shoulders of all the research for childhood cancer. We definitely have to have the federal funding.
Got it. So organizations like yours are very important. Can you walk me through the steps of families seeking to get help from your organization?
So if you're wanting to get help, like from the family support, we help families pay bills. We provide meals at the hospitals. We also will help families transport to clinical trials, which is super important to get them there and help to pay for, lodging and travel and that type thing. But our main focus, honestly, is really trying to advance the research so that families, when they hear that their child has cancer, will have options and that there will be better treatment, better drugs, fewer long-term side effects. And so that is a main concentration of ours. Gotcha.
So now, and again, we talk about these cuts. Hopefully the cuts won't kick in, but how can people like myself help out if that happens?
Oh my gosh, that is a great question. So on our website, we have a big call to advocacy, call to action. So you could go to the website and on there, and I'll be glad to provide it for y'all after this. And there are letters that you can send. We make it super easy. There's different legislation that we're trying to pass. And also just your elected officials hearing from you, the Georgia, your Georgia congressmen, your senators hearing from you that childhood cancer research is important and you want to see it funded is really critical, because really, I just want everybody to know your voice matters and your elected officials listen to you because they want to keep their jobs and they need to know what's important. If they don't hear from you, then they won't know what is important. And then when these votes come up, they won't know how to vote. So your voice matters. You need to tell them what's important. And funding childhood cancer research is super important. Childhood cancer is the #1 disease killer of kids in America. And so therefore, we really need to make that not true anymore. And the only way that's going to happen is through research.
So we really shouldn't be waiting for the cuts to happen. We really should be getting active now.
Correct. And we have a great letter on our website. Again, I will get you that link, and people can fill that out and let their members hear from them that how important this funding is. There's also a couple of key pieces of legislation that are up right now that are going to be before getting voted on in the House and the Senate, and we want those to pass and then be passed to the president for him to sign them into law. So there's a lot of things going on, and it's an exciting time. It's a little wonky because of all the cuts. But then, I think we just have to rise above it and then be willing to do what we can and to use our voices, which is so important.
All right. So we're going to encourage people to get involved even now. We'll not wait for these cuts to take place. And as you've been saying all morning long, hopefully the cuts won't take place and you guys won't be affected by that or making you have to step your game up even more. And again, we'll be here to help you out as much as possible. Thanks for joining us this morning. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Take care.
One of Atlanta's most overlooked communities is now on the rise. Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh neighborhood on the south side, is seeing a surge in new residents. Jonathan Martin is here to explain why this is taking place as a part of his special Affording Atlanta series. Good morning, Jonathan.
Hey, good morning to you, Chesley. Always good to be with you.
Oh, man, glad to have you on the show, man. Why is this such an interest? Why is this Pittsburgh neighborhood such an interest?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, affordability. The average home value in this neighborhood is just $260,000. And you consider that's among the lowest here in the city of Atlanta. Not only that, but proximity. We're talking about a community just about 2 miles south of downtown Atlanta. And of course, the bigger reason you could say is the changing perception. If you asked anyone here in Atlanta years ago about the Pittsburgh neighborhood, they would have said that's the neighborhood that has drugs and prostitution, a lot of crime. While they still have some issues, neighbors tell you that that has really changed and it's become a lot more of an attractive community, a lot more people moving there.
How were they able to bounce back, Jonathan?
Well, they had the foreclosure crisis about 15 years ago. That area was in particular hit really, really hard. And that's why a lot of nonprofit developers like the Atlanta Land Trust, the Annie Casey Foundation, they came in, they bought up dozens and dozens of these homes, they rebuilt and made them affordable housing units. And that's one of the ways they were able to inject, some of this rebuilding and these affordable homes back into the community.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Yards has been a big part of the revitalization of the neighborhood. Tell us more about that development.
Yeah, if you've been along the Beltline right in the South Side area along the South Side Trail, you may have noticed Pittsburgh Yards. It's a building. They have at least 100 spaces, rentable spaces for people to rent out. You have different businesses from photography studios, coffee shops, and the goal is to have affordable commercial space for people in these communities like Summerhill, Pittsburgh, and Mechanicsville, so they can start their businesses, they can grow their businesses, and then stay in that community and really develop and push entrepreneurship.
Did you get a chance to talk to any of the neighbors there? Do they have any concerns about these changes?
Yeah, I spoke to some legacy residents, Chesley, along with the neighborhood president. One of the things that a lot of neighbors there are concerned about is, as you might expect, gentrification. Mm-hmm. Of course, they want revitalization, right? They want these new homes. They even see a lot of these $500,000 homes popping up. So they like the progress, but they're also saying, hey, we've been here all our lives. We don't want to be pushed out, or we don't want to be priced out. So that's one of the big concerns right now.
Is that a possibility? Could some of them be pushed out, you think?
Well, right now they're saying they appreciate the feedback and the consideration they're getting from some of these nonprofit developers, keeping a lot of the housing affordable. But when you see $500,000 homes now popping up in this community for the first time, a lot of them get worried and get concerned.
That's understandable, right? So what's next for Pittsburgh? Any new projects that they have out there?
Well, there is more growth right now. We know that the Beltline Incorporated, the people over the Beltline project, they have a big apartment complex they're going to build. They at least hope to build in the next couple of years with about 500 new units right near Pittsburgh Yards. So likely we're going to see more growth. But what neighbors say they really want to see is more commercial space, at least I should say retail space, more restaurants, things that they can keep in the community, grocery stores, to really build up the community, not just new homes.
And these will be affordable, right? That's what you're saying?
That's what we're told. Yeah. That's what we're told. And that's what neighbors have been promised.
Okay, sounds good. Jonathan Martin, thank you for joining us always.
Yeah.
You look good in your vest, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm trying to go that route.
Brought it out for you this morning.
I'm trying to go that route. I'm trying to go that route. Thanks a lot.
The International Olympic Committee has awarded the 1996 Olympic Games to the city of Atlanta.
Who doesn't remember that? Atlanta. We love the way he says that. That was back in 1990 when the International Olympic Committee made our city an Olympic host. That was the moment right there in part, and the accumulation of a special partnership, which now focuses on a documentary debuting at this weekend's Atlanta Film Festival. The Games in Black and White focuses on Billy Payne and Andrew Young and how their bid for the Games helped Atlanta move forward. Here joining me now is the co-executive producer and co-director and writer, George Herthler. Welcome to the show, George.
Thanks.
Good to see
Jesse.
you.
Good to be here with you, man.
What made you do this as a topic for a documentary?
Well, I was the lead writer on the campaign to bring the games here back in 1989 and 90. Mm-hmm. And Bob Judson was a filmmaker working on the Olympics then. And a couple of years ago, we got together and said, you know what, let's do a documentary that recaptures that great moment and get it ready in time for the 30th anniversary of the Games, which is next year. So we finished a little early.
Oh, yeah, finished a little early. And you're focusing really on the relationship between Billy Payne and Andrew Young. Talk to me about that.
That's the essence of what made our bid successful. Mm-hmm. The civil rights heritage of Atlanta, people knew that we were the capital of civil rights. And Andy and Billy were emblematic because a white man and a black man teaming up and going out, they symbolized everything that people knew about Atlanta's history. As a beacon of race relations in the United States and racial harmony.
They made it work?
They made it work. They were brilliant. They were brilliant.
What made Atlanta stand out, do you think, to get the Games? Was it that partnership? Did they present such a grand venue that they couldn't resist, or what?
In the end, the voters always vote for the people they like best. Billy Payne orchestrated a strategy in which he and Andy and other members of the Atlanta Nine traveled around the world and made friends with IOC members. On a technical basis, our city had the Georgia World Congress Center. We had a massive amount of hotel rooms. We had the great airport. We had Delta Airlines flying people in and out. Yeah. We had the infrastructure in place. So we were technically, we had great advantages, but it was the personalities of Andy and Billy that carried the day.
Wow. How would you stack up Atlanta's venue against others?
I think the technical assessment that came out from the Evaluation Commission in the summer of 1990, right before the vote in September, came out in Barcelona in the summer. It was leaked, and we were ranked #1.
Really?
So it was clear against the other 5 cities that we were absolutely technically superior.
Was it, do you think, wasn't it like an anniversary for it to go back to Athens, maybe?
Athens was the prohibitive favorite.
Yeah, that's where they started, right?
Baron Pierre de Coubertin founded the modern Olympic Games, Paris, France, 1894. The first games were in Athens, Greece in 1896. The idea was, let's use sport as a global platform to unite the world in friendship and peace.
Wow.
Okay? Went to Athens, so when the centennial came around in 1996, everybody said, oh, it's going to Athens.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hands down favorite.
Yeah.
And then Atlanta emerged as a dark horse and boom,
came
grabbed
in there
the prize.
and snatched it right on out.
And that was a great moment. You just played that. Tape, and that was a great. I was in the room in Tokyo when that announcement was made.
Wow.
It was one of the most thrilling moments of my life.
It's something around here that we'll never forget. I mean, the way he said that. Atlanta.
Yeah,
what else did you learn about making this documentary that you didn't know probably in the past?
Well, we emphasized a couple things that the world never heard. You know, the bombing in Centennial Olympic Park obscured a lot of the positive stories of the games that were happening in the background. Billy and Andy, the first act of the board of directors after we won in July of 1991, the board of directors took Andy and Billy and Maynard Jackson's program of equal economic opportunity and put it in place. So we had more than 4,000 minority and female-owned businesses benefiting from the economic development of the games over the next 6 years. Andy and Johan Olof Koss, the speed skating legend from Norway, mounted Olympic aid humanitarian outreach that ended up immunizing, in the run-up to the games, 15 million kids in conflict zones around the world.
Jeez.
Yeah, so great stories that are in the film.
Okay, man, I can't wait to see it. Do you think Atlanta would ever host the games again?
It could happen.
Yeah.
Maybe not while I'm still here, but it might happen in your lifetime.
I don't know, maybe me and you, we could team up.
You want to?
You know, and try it,
you
know.
Let's go for it.
I want to hear him say it again. I want to hear him say Atlanta.
It could happen.
Again.
Yeah.
George, thanks so much. President Trump signed 7 new executive orders, all tied to education. One targets the federal government's process for deciding what colleges and universities can access billions of dollars in federal student loans and Pell Grants. Trump also signed an executive order aimed at bringing artificial intelligence into K through 12 schools. And a third order, the president threatened to cut off federal funding for schools that fail to disclose where their foreign money comes from. This comes ahead of the White House's imposing a deadline of today, asking states to promise to end DEI programs in K through 12 schools or risk losing their federal dollars. Earlier this month, the White House put out a memo citing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and said that any violation, including the use of diversity, equality, and inclusion programs to the advantage of one's race over another is impermissible. And now local school districts are wondering what their next steps will be and where else critical funds could be coming from. Joining us now is Michael Tefelsky, Interim Deputy Legal Director for Southern Poverty Law Center. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. First of all, this has to be tough for school districts, right? Trying to get a sense of all this, all these adjustments that have been handled down by the federal government. Talk to me about it.
Absolutely. We see attacks on public education happening from every direction right now, and the latest last night with numerous executive orders will further create more confusion and challenges for school districts across Georgia and across the country.
Let's talk about this DEI promise that's being asked for and how the Southern Poverty Law Center is getting involved in that.
Sure. So just to give a little background, on February 14th, the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, issued a Dear Colleague letter to school districts and state education associations across the country. And what that letter did is basically give districts their interpretation of Title VI. For folks at home, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, national origin, and also ensures that recipients of federal funding, like local school districts, comply with Title VI. What the Trump administration did in that letter is communicate a distorted analysis of what Title VI is. And it's important for folks to understand that a Dear Colleague letter is not the law. It does not circumvent the law, and it doesn't change the law. What it does is it gives the administration's interpretation of the law. And that interpretation, frankly, is wrong and incorrect, which is then creating much of this confusion among local school districts and states, and also why many states are rejecting the interpretation that the Trump administration is offering. So as part of that analysis, then the next event was that after the Dear Colleague letter was sent, the Trump administration communicated to local school districts and states that they would need to certify compliance with Title VI. And while that is common for school districts to do, they're required to certify compliance with Title VI and other civil rights statutes. What the Trump administration is trying to tack onto that is compliance with their false interpretation of Title VI. And that then is creating much of this confusion and problems for school districts who are now facing this very difficult decision of how to respond.
Can you talk a little bit more about the differences there? How do you know, you're saying the Trump administration is putting out something that's kind of skewed. Break that down for me a little bit.
Sure. So what the Trump administration is saying is that now initiatives to advance diversity, equity, inclusion in our schools are contrary to Title VI, that they would potentially violate Title VI. But that has not been the law in this country for decades. Since Title VI was passed, we know that schools can operate initiatives to encourage diversity, inclusion, equity in our schools, and that is actually lawful compliance with Title VI. And so that distortion of the law that's being communicated to school districts is creating many problems, and also with a goal of chilling school districts. So school districts are fearful that they're going to lose their federal funding, right? And so they are beginning to make decisions that are going to harm students out of fear. And so that is why we at SPLC are looking for ways to support communities, to support school districts, to support educators, to support families in fighting back, because we believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion are critical to ensuring that all children get the highest quality education in our communities.
All right, and quickly explain to me what you guys are putting into place to kind of help fight that.
Well, we are offering support so today is the deadline for districts to certify, and we can expect, and I believe all the districts across Georgia are going to sign the certification the state of Georgia is going to certify, unlike other states and other districts in the country, which are fighting back. But what we want to communicate to communities too is that as you are starting to see programs or opportunities within your local schools that begin to be canceled or disappear, we want to hear about those, and we want to learn about them, and we want to provide support, whether that be legal assistance or other advocacy or other resources to help communities push back on these changes, because we know they are going to be harmful to our students, we know they're going to be harmful to our schools, and we know it's contrary to the law under federal civil rights laws.
On the take, we're cutting through some of the static of the tariffs and trades and zooming in on the really important matters. We're talking about your wallet, folks. 2 of 11Alive's investigators are on this story, digging into the story that could hit you where it hurts, right there in the checkout line. Let's toss it over to Liza Lucas now, who is live with us this morning. Good morning to you, Liza.
Good morning, Chesley. Okay, we're talking about some important questions, right? Is your grocery bill going up? Did that must-have item that you've been eyeing or really need for your household, did it jump in price? What do these tariffs really mean for the average person, people like you and me, families, those on a budget or living from paycheck to paycheck? Well, there are a flood of headlines out there. We all know it. Tons of predictions, but what's happening in reality? That's what we wanted to find out. Are you paying more at the store? So off Rebecca Lindstrom and I went to the shelves with a very simple mission, Chesley. Are the everyday things you buy, like kitchenware and clothes and electronics, are they starting to cost more because of the shifting trade policy?
All right, so how do you measure something like this, Liza?
Well, we kept it very real, very simple. Like an everyday shopper, we picked out everyday items, things that you and I would need or want. And then we went to the labels and we checked those labels just like any other shopper would. We then tracked where they were made and, more importantly, what they cost before the tariffs kicked in. Then we went back shopping this week for more price checks to check out if there were any changes.
All right, so what did you find out? Are the prices actually going up?
Well, I'm curious to see what you think, but of course we have about 100 items that we're tracking right here. We've been tracking those items for weeks, and while some of those prices have not budged yet, we are starting to see prices creep up online in particular. And I don't think we're done yet, because we know that Shein and Temu, very popular sites, they've already come out. They've said that U.S. customers are going to start seeing the increases really come into play starting Friday, tomorrow, due to these rate changes. So this is just the beginning of our investigation. We're kind of laying the groundwork for you here, and we're going to continue to bring you updates as we continue to price check.
So, all right, it's 2 of you. One took maybe electronics, somebody else took food. How did you split it up? What did you do?
Oh, man. I mean, first of all, Rebecca Lindstrom is a shopper. I think I did 30 items to start. Rebecca found like 75, but we did everything from TV to T-shirts to socks. And we really tried to stick to things that we knew would be on shelves for several weeks, so not the seasonal items necessarily. And we were surprised how easily we really found items from 30 countries. Of course, we also really zoned in on China because that's where the bulk of the trade war is right now.
Consumers are adapting to artificial intelligence faster than businesses are, and we're learning that some folks are falling into four personas, which are shaping the future of how we interact with technology. Joining us now is Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist of Salesforce. And Vala, I got to say, I've never talked to a digital evangelist before, so I'm happy that you're on the show.
Good morning, Chesty. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Hey, this is an explosion, right? We've never seen this before, obviously, artificial intelligence. Are you surprised at how fast and robust this has become?
You know, I'm very surprised at the rate of adoption, but it's pleasantly surprised, because who doesn't want to have a digital assistant to help them make better, more informed decisions, make life easier? And so in our research, as you mentioned, we found 4 personas: the smarty pants, who's looking for more informed decisions, the life hacker, who's looking for efficiencies, the minimalist, who wants to simplify their life, and the tastemaker, who's looking for very tailored experiences.
I may fit into all 4 of those, maybe. I do understand that AI is meant to take care of the simple tasks for us, right? And I know at first I was kind of fearful of this, like, what, they're taking over our lives, taking our job, that kind of thing. Where do you see this going in 5 to 10 years down the line?
Wow, in 5 years, I suspect all of us will have a digital agent that we're going to lean into for shopping experiences, for finding jobs, for health and wealth advice and guidance. it's going to be like Iron Man and Jarvis, one of my favorite movies, to be able to, speak into your phone or device or an application and just, make all experiences a little bit better for you.
What do you say to people who are fearful of this change, right? Who have not accepted it?
Yeah, our surveys found that, if you're a Gen X like myself, you may be less inclined to adopt new technology. Generally speaking, 70% of the Gen Z that made up our survey results are favorable in terms of using digital assistants to help them across a variety of experiences. Get in the game. I would say I've been in tech for 30 years, Chesley, and this is the most important, most impactful technology of my lifetime. I think AI is electricity for the 21st century. So if you avoid it, you're going to find yourself in the dark in terms of finding joyful, beautiful experiences.
Yeah, I think about my mother oftentimes when we have cell phone. She's in her 80s, and how she has now adapted to texting and, just to be able to speak to her grandkids. That's the way she's going to have to communicate, or they'd leave her in the dust, as you said. Now, I understand you have a little quiz which helps people figure out which group they fall in. What's your group?
So I took the quiz. I fell into the Smarty Pants, which was the largest category. People that are, again, looking to break down complex tasks and make faster, better decisions. I encourage your audience to go to our Salesforce news site. You can take the quiz and find out which persona. Also a reminder for businesses as they're building their artificial intelligence capabilities. Consumers have always been behind revolutions, whether it's the mobile revolution, the social revolution, and they're going to be driving the AI revolution. So it's important for businesses to understand there are a variety of personas, and each persona has a different need, and it's important for companies to understand that.
Now, I got to ask you, Mr. Offshore, do you think you're talking to me, or do you think you're talking to artificial intelligence right now?
Chesley, you're way too charming and handsome for me to think it's anyone but you.
So it hasn't caught up yet, right? It hasn't caught up yet. So I still get to keep my job. Bala Offshore, I really appreciate you joining us. My first time talking to a digital evangelist, and you did great. You did great, man.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. A major victory for two men who were left their mark on Cobb County School District. Longtime basketball coaches James Gwyn and Randy McClure were initially told their positions at Campbell High School were being eliminated due to allotment purposes. This decision sparked outrage and got protests from the community, former students, and other advocates. The Cobb County School District launched an investigation, and last night, Superintendent Chris Ragsdale shared the results.
I recommended Coach McClure and Coach Gwyn be offered contracts for rehire by the Cobb County School District for school year 25-26. Both coaches accepted and signed their contracts. I am also pleased to report that the process leading to the recommendation for their non-renewal has also been examined, and it is my expectation it will not occur again.
Ooh, it will not occur again. So some good news right there. Joining us now is Cobb County coach James Gwyn. He's on the phone with us this morning. Good morning to you, Coach.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right. How do you feel this morning after hearing that news last night?
Feel very, very satisfied and feel very appreciative of from Superintendent Ragsdale and the supporters in the community. Colleagues just got a lot of support through this. So really, it's just a good feeling. Feels like your efforts are appreciated and noticed.
Yeah. You looking back on this whole thing, I know you thought, wow, this is kind of insane here. How do you feel about the whole situation now?
Well, I feel like it was unnecessary. That's just my opinion, but and I'm still not sure what all the motives of this was, but they put us through a tough time, and I think it put the program through a tough time. And I'm not sure really why it occurred in the first place.
Wow. Any lessons learned from this at all going forward?
Well, I think the lessons learned, some of the things that we try to tell the students, is sometimes you have life things that you have to deal with, and then you have to try to go about dealing with them in a professional manner and seeing a process through. And that's why I really appreciated the investigation and appreciated your guys' coverage. And I think it kind of let them know that if you show some resiliency and perseverance, that things may turn out your way. And I think this is going to be a good teaching point even for the students.
Those that made the decision, have you had a chance to talk to them about this since you've been reinstated?
No, I haven't. So hopefully that will come, in short order.
Yeah. Hopefully, well, maybe this could be a spark into the next season coming up for you guys to go on and win a championship. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this may be some motivation that we can also pass along to the kids in the program, even myself and Coach McClure. We could maybe use this as motivation, and who knows what happens. We'll be able to refer back to it and maybe have a good result there too on the court.
Yeah, talk to me about your future plans. You mentioned when this first went down that you weren't planning on sticking around that long, but now that all this is taking place, what's your future plans? Do you have some clue, or are you just going to ride it out?
Well, I'd like to go, another year or two and just decide, talk with my family and my wife and see, she's been with me the whole time through all these years. So I'll probably think a little bit more and hopefully, I'll have some communication with the leadership at the school about the same thing. Sometimes,
I don't want to call it a bad thing. Maybe it was just an unfortunate thing that happens, shines light on other things. I know you guys were honored by Smyrna this past week, right?
That's right. The Smyrna City Council did a proclamation for both myself and Coach McClure. I'm at 30 years. He's at 39 years, so I'm still kind of the young guy in the process. But they did it was very appreciative and it was very timely, I thought, for them. But that's part of that community support, and it really is. And we really appreciate that.
Wow. Okay. Very good. Very good. And that proclamation came last week. When did they give that to you?
That was the Smyrna recognition was on Monday.
Oh, this past Monday. Okay. Yep. All right. And probably more to come, Coach. I can tell you that. And perhaps maybe as a result of this situation, you probably have more fans in the seats for the upcoming season. Folks are going to want to see you win. I know that for a fact.
Right, we're looking for it. I think that first home game may be very well attended.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I may be in the house myself.
Hey, we look forward to seeing you, Chesley.
Hey, appreciate all that you do, Coach. Thank you for your work, and we look forward to seeing you the upcoming season. My final take on something that you may love about Hartsfield-Jackson. It's about to change. We're talking about the price of parking. Yep, comparatively speaking, it's very affordable. It used to be, but now that's all coming to an end starting on May 1st. In some cases, parking is going up almost 200%. For example, the economy in North and South lots will go from $14 a day to $20 a day. The West Deck, $3 an hour to $10 an hour. Why so high? Well, of course, officials say to keep up the infrastructure, latest parking technology, and to remain competitive with other airports. Who wanted you to be competitive? We don't want you to do that. Whose idea was this? Come on, folks. As much as I'm going to complain and you're going to complain about this, the truth is we're going to pay the difference. It's all about convenience for us, especially when you're running late to the airport with Atlanta traffic. They got us. What are we going to do? We're going to pay it. Yep. I'm going to see you at the airport, folks. And exactly when it gets started, my producer and I go on vacation. We'll be paying those big bucks just because it's convenient. We'll see you at the airport. Have a great day, folks, and try to encourage someone about this parking situation.